Yeah, man, people ask that question all the time, man. But look, I was born into this, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I bleed burgundy and gold. I bleed DC. This is my home. This is my squad. Regardless of all the name changes and all that, man, it's burgundy and gold for me. It's DC for me. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm here, man. I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. Do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.
Elijah Dallas, what's
Welcome back, Redzone In the Lab podcast. I am Deuce. What's good, y'all? How y'all feeling, man? Day 5, well, day 2, depending on how you look at it. If you want to count the legal tampering period, this is day 5 of NFL free agency. And, you know, joining me today is Craig Hoffman. He's going to be right back, right on radar. What's good? How you feeling? The roster is coming back into shape. The roster is coming into shape. It's coming into shape. I really like the decision to bring back Noah Brown. And I really like the decision to bring back Igbo. Those two right there, you know, kind of, you know, I'm a little at ease, right? I think Noah can be a number 2 wide receiver because I just didn't think we had a number 2. I think Deebo is going to be a gadget guy, a weapon, a great weapon. Hopefully he can get to that elite weapon where he's going to be all over the field. You know, being able to use him in the motion and the jet game and misdirection and handoffs to screens. But having someone like Noah can free him up to be able to be as effective as he possibly can. What's good, Craig? Welcome. How you doing, buddy?
So sorry about that, Deuce. All of a sudden, we're in the intro, and I just see a black screen, and it's like your mic is disconnected. This happened to me during a taping last week, and I was like, okay, at least I know what to do. At least I restart the computer. I'll be back in 60 seconds, I swear. I'm leaving my guy out to dry. I'm good, bro. I appreciate you. Sorry to the audience, but I'm sure Deuce did a great job of vamping, as we call it in the business.
Definitely. Yes, most definitely. I call it filibuster, but if it's vamping in the business,
vamping, filibustering, yapping, whatever you got.
But like, so we've been streaming like twice a day since Monday. So I think this is my 12th stream this week since Monday. Yesterday at the 5 o'clock stream, during the stream, I felt myself like nodding.
Oh,
Can you
no.
imagine if I fall asleep live on stream?
I mean, I've done a lot of live hours in my day. I mean, I do 3 hours daily on the radio, which is all on video too. There are times like, I'm trying to remember the movie. I feel like this is the scene in like any boxing movie, right? I mean, definitely like in the Rocky movies, whatever. He's in the corner, he's slashed over, and the corner man is just coming like, hey man, we got to get you back. Sometimes that's me during commercial breaks, during the radio show. I'm just like, and I don't know if I can do it, bro.
He's so tired.
Someone give me some, splash my face. And then all of a sudden, you know, you take a big deep breath and you just go, welcome back to the Hoffman show. And then off we go for another 10 minutes. Just trying to get from break to break. I feel you. I feel this free agency stuff is not for the weak.
No, not at all. It was tough, man. My wife was like, oh, you at it again? Yes, I'm at it again. Speaking of free agency, like we often say, you know, it's different ways to skin a cat. It's different ways to build your team. We've seen different Super Bowl teams, and it's not built the same way.
Facts.
How Adam is doing it with the 1-year deals, the vet guys with something to prove. You know, it seems like guys with leadership that's kind of been there and done that. You know, these 2-3 year deals for those that kind of show splashes that are a little younger that you kind of, well, maybe, you know, we give them this opportunity. They can, like, it's like they're betting on the ceiling of these players How do you look at the waste from last year and through to this point? Is he creating a new way of free agency?
To an extent. I mean, I think what you always have to do is adapt to the market. And I think one underrated factor was literally just before we hopped on here, before all my equipment died, was in my YouTube comments because I can't help myself, and was going back and forth with someone about, this is how.
Should I pull up a clip?
No, I mean we got plenty. We might be doing Never Read the Comments on the radio show today. We didn't get a chance to do it yesterday, but this guy and I've been going back and forth, like typing in the comments, and he's like, I've been studying NFL team building for 40 years, and I'm like, cool. Maybe this year you'll learn there's different ways to do it. But I think, he brought up a lot of great examples of teams that have been built successfully over the years, but like half of those examples were before the salary cap era. Or everyone likes to, well, the Patriots did it this way. The Patriots had the greatest quarterback of all time on a contract discount for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, if you can get your franchise quarterback to marry a billionaire supermodel and not care about his salary, then hell yeah, you should follow that plan. I don't think that's going to be available to Jaden Daniels. The most important woman in his life, as far as we know, is his mother, who's also his agent, and would very much like to see him be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL in 3 years. I don't think that's going to be an option available to the Washington Commanders. And so I think that you have to be realistic with, like, obviously the modern circumstances. So then we get into the conversation, Deuce, of like, what are the modern circumstances? Well, specifically the last 2 years, the salary cap has jumped about $20 million each year. And that has come at a very bad time for the Washington Commanders, trying to rebuild their roster from the nothing barren cupboard that Ron Rivera mostly left, outside of, Sam Cosmi and Quan Martin, basically, right? And so what that means is, yes, the Commanders have a lot of free agent money to spend, but other teams have more money than they thought, so they can retain their own players. So anybody that they think is good enough to keep around, they basically can, unless you're like the Cincinnati Bengals and you screwed up the contract timings of the Cowboys, and you screwed up the contract timings of your stars so bad that you let good players walk. But there's a ton of dudes around the league that, like, once the salary cap number came in, like Alaric Jackson, the left tackle for the Los Angeles Rams, they were fully ready to lose him. And then the salary cap number came in and they're like, oh, we can afford him. Sick. Hey, dude, here's a contract. He's like, cool, signed, done. I'm going to go keep playing for Sean McVay. Now, all of a sudden, the left tackle market is down to Ronnie Staley, day before the free agency opens. Obviously, it's been very well reported at this point. The Commanders were going to make a huge run at Ronnie Stanley. And then the Ravens were like, we can afford him. Just kidding. He's not on the market. So if you're Adam and you have to acquire major talent at the top of your roster, and you were so good so fast, you're picking at 29, then something like the Laremy Tunsil trade makes a lot of sense. And then from there, you want to keep the flexibility to keep making those kinds of moves. Let's say next year, middle of the year, Micah Parsons and the Cowboys are having a terrible season. This will not happen this way because Jerry's way too stubborn, and there's no way they would trade him in the division. But just bear with me for a second.
Oh,
right?
I'm there. I'm walking right.
You're like, Deuce is like, I'm 5 steps ahead of you, bro. I know where you're going, and I'm excited about it. But let's say Micah Parsons becomes available via trade. Or shoot, let's say he gets to free agency. Let's say that, he and the Cowboys come to such an impasse next year, and Jerry's so dumb and or stubborn that he truly lets Micah get to the market, thinking that, Micah's going to go out, see the market, and then come back to us because we're the Dallas Cowboys and I'm Jerry Jones. And then Adam Peters is like, I got $40 million a year I can spend on Micah Parsons. You want to reunite with DQ? Like, they're ready. So they've kept the flexibility, whether it's trades or future free agents, to really make the big splashes where they can, while also saying, instead of taking a bunch of flyers on young guys that aren't going to work out, let's take the 30-year-old that we know is a good NFL player. And, I think probably there might be some fans who listen to Take Command, they get frustrated with Logan, who are like, what are you talking about? Eddie Goldman and Dietrich Wise, like these guys that I've never heard of are good NFL players. And it's like, no, they are. The standard of a good NFL player is far lower than most fans realize. And so I appreciate what they're doing in that way. I also don't know what other options they really have, because you are at the mercy of the market, and the market for free agency is just not that good right now because the best players are all being retained by their incumbent teams.
And that's what it looked like. Because going into free agency, this is why I always caution, like myself, and when I talk about it with others, is that yes, they are going to be free agents, but it's this week and a half period before the tampering period that teams is going to try to bring these guys back. So what you see now, and you're already trying to bring on your team, it may not be there, right? But the fact that we see these names that they could be available, And then once they're snatched, it's like your expectations is just like crushed because what you see on the market is not what you expected. So when you see a move like Kinlaw, you just like go crazy because it's not the Hendrickson or it's not the Miles Garrett and all those names that we've been forced that it's a high chance that we're going to pick them up.
For sure. And then the other thing that happens is you get kind of brushed back by a number like Kinlaw. But if I told you that Kinlaw's number was 11 million a year instead of 15, like, do you think anybody'd be that mad about it? Probably not. 2 years ago, the same percentage of the cap was $7 million. Like, that is how much these gigantic cap raises. And for anyone who's wondering, like, how is this happening? Why are we not able to predict it? Basically, just like in the NBA, I feel like this stuff gets talked about more there, like the BRI, the basketball-related income, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing in football. Like, there's a big pot of money. The Players Association is negotiated to say X percent. Divide that, that number goes over here to the players. Divide that number by 32. That's your salary cap. Well, when the NFL signs a $1 billion deal with Netflix, well, there's a lot more money in that pot.
Yeah.
And so because the NFL has continued to find new revenue streams, the cap is going up higher. And thus you have to, and instead of like smoothing it out or doing whatever, it's like a year by year thing. And so we just have to adjust our brains to say $15 million for a rotational defensive tackle who's going to play 600 snaps, like starter level, maybe not the starter, but like he's going to be right up there with Payne and Newton. Like, that guy costs you $15 million now if he's any good. And Javon Kinlaw's not great. I'm not trying to tell you Kinlaw's better than he definitely is. What I am trying to tell you is that's what Javon Kinlaw costs now.
Yeah. And you just got to, just like you said, you have to take all that into consideration because 10 years from now, a Kinlaw type signing might cost you $22 million.
Facts.
If the cap continues to rise.
What Jaden's going to, what's Jaden going to cost in 3 years?
I don't even want to talk about
70, 80? Like, but percentage of the cap compared to a guy that was $40 million 3 years ago, like, it ain't going to be that different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just how you look at it. When it comes to free agency, what's so far the best move that they've made outside of Tunsil? Because I think Tunsil is.
I was going to ask if Tunsil
Tunsil
counts.
Doesn't count. Tunsil doesn't count.
How about Dietrich Wise? I think that's a guy I wasn't super familiar with. Played up in New England for a bunch of years. Belichick really liked him. Obviously, last year New England was kind of a mess. But I was talking about him with Logan, and Logan's like, he's what Cleveland Ferrell was supposed to be, but better, and he has more pass rush juice.
Sheesh.
And I was like, oh, that seems useful. Like, because he's 6'5", 280. 6'5", 280 doesn't grow on trees. It's hard to find that big edge. And it very much seems like that is something that they want. They want these bigger body types. Like, even Kinlaw, although he doesn't necessarily play super big all the time, like, sometimes his height is actually a detriment because he doesn't, low man wins, leverage, all those kinds of things we've heard a million times. For Wise on the edge, like, he plays to his size in a good way. And he's got some real pass rush juice. He's got a pretty decent pressure percentage. He had 5 sacks last year. And so if he can be the guy opposite of Dorrance Armstrong, like, that's a decently high floor. I hope they go find an edge in the draft or that they go sign Azeez Ojulari or whoever and they get some more, bring back Fowler. Like, they need more of a designated pass rush type that's got like major juice but may not be able to set the edge in the run game. But it's like a first and second down player. He's pretty darn good. And so I wasn't familiar with your game, Dietrich Wise, but once I became familiar, he actually might be one of the better signings that they've made.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance. Like I said, we've been streaming on, so I'm definitely going to get into it next week with those guys. What about a head scratcher?
Initially, I think everyone, I think it's fair to be like, whoa, that is like a very interesting commitment to Javon Kinlaw, right?
Yeah.
That's a guy that has underproduced based off his talent, based off his draft status. But this is where it's hard because you have to give this coaching staff the benefit of the doubt that they're going to find a way to use this guy that's super talented. And it speaks well to him as a person that Adam drafts him, plays for Robert Saleh. Saleh, when he can, brings him to New York. And now Adam's like, oh, I want him back with me now that I'm in DC. So, like, I think you're getting a good person in the locker room and a good worker. But, like, to say, like, that guy, we're going to rely on that guy because it $15 million, again, is that what a rotational piece costs? Yes. But is that the rotational piece you want versus some other options that may have been out there? Like, that's a bold choice to make that kind of commitment to that guy. So I think that's probably the head scratcher, but I don't really have any others. I mean, honestly, my biggest head scratcher in free agency is how the hell Darius Slayton wound up back in New York on 3 for 36. And it's head scratching from both the New York side. And why didn't someone else pay him that? Maybe no one else wanted to go to that third year. But they've been trying to get rid of him for like 4 years.
And he went back.
And he just keeps being their leading receiver until they draft Malik Neighbors. And now he's back on the money they wouldn't give Saquon Barkley.
That's
like,
insane.
What? And so
Clap it
I would
up
have
for the blue people. Great move.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is a good move. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I'm mad about it because I wanted Slayton here, and I would have paid him $14 million to be here, knowing what number 2 receivers cost, and a guy with real vertical speed. So I think the head scratcher to this point is like what they haven't done yet. Like, where is the edge guy? They finally like filled out the receiver room a little bit, bringing back Noah yesterday. It's like, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. But I actually don't feel like there's any huge ones. I feel like they've done a pretty bang-up smart job. Do you have one that comes to mind for you?
I think, like, when I'm going to get into these surprises, I think the losses. The one is Olamide Zaccheaus. I think I had a feeling that he would be one of the ones to come back to the team just to kind of continue to fill out that wide receiver room, keep that familiarity around. Not so much that he's going to make the 53, but maybe that's why he decided not to come back. So that was a little surprising. I see him as like Deebo is OZ plus, right? Of
so
course,
if they're gonna if they're gonna take like, hey, the gadget guy, the underneath guy, the screen guy, like that stuff's going to Deebo now. And not that I don't think you couldn't have multiples of that within this offense with the way it's run and options and whatever. Like he and Crowder played well off each other last year. They're similar enough. I get why OZ left though, and I get why they didn't want to overpay for that if they're going to have Deebo be that guy.
Yeah, it's just that with Deebo, like I know he's played in a lot of games the last couple of years, but when you go back and kind of watch some of those games, he takes some series off. I don't know if it's load management or whatever the case may be. So I just thought maybe someone that they could kind of fall back on in those type of circumstances. But you never know; they might pick up someone that's kind of similar. Like I mean, Oz is. We can find another Oz, right? We can definitely find another Oz.
There's a lot of guys in this league that are really talented with the ball in their hands. Like they're just great athletes, and maybe there's some other parts of their game that are not as special. And so if you want to go find a backup guy that might win you a game at some point because you throw him a screen, he takes it to the house, like, and that's the only play he makes all year, like, I hope he's good on special teams too. Because that's the other thing too, is like, some of the guys that they've let go, like the Defos and guys like that, like they're going to miss some of those guys on teams. Now they brought back Nick Bellore. They also have Tyler Owens. Like,
I didn't know he was that old. I didn't even realize he was that old.
Who, Bellore?
Yeah.
He's what, late 20s, early 30s?
Oh, so I thought Nikki posted something. He's going to be 37 next year. Or maybe she was talking about someone else.
I'll have to go back and look.
No, I didn't either. That's why when I saw her.
Oh, I mean, he's 35. I guess it's 2 years.
Yeah. So when his deal, she was like, when his deal is up, he's going to be 37.
This makes me excited, Deuce. I finally found a player older than me. I'm at that line where we've been talking about this on the show this week. Every single player that signs, or like, especially with all these 30-year-olds, it's like, oh, is this guy too old? He's 32, and I'm 35 now, and I'm like, oh, this hurts. Nick Bellore. Older than me.
Yep. See, there you go.
Still plays like he's younger than me. Yeah. He plays his face off.
Man, him, Reeves, and Tyler Owens, man, they got a good group, good core there on specials. What about Chen? Did you see? I just knew he was a lock.
I thought he would be back, but I'm also not surprised at the direction they went. Like one, it's a pretty good deal that he got. Like the 2 for 16. Or 2 for whatever he got. Like he got good money. And congrats to him. Like he earned it. Safety is just not a position you spend a ton of money on, though, typically in this league. They have some young guys that are interesting. And I think Harris gives them a little more versatility in coverage, which is something I think they want. And then I wonder if they've got guys that whether it's in the draft or elsewhere in free agency, that you think can play that hybrid role. I mean, the guy that I keep thinking about, too, that I just don't know what he is for them is Dominique Hampton. I mean, they clearly like him. They spent a 5th-round pick on him last year. They redshirted him to move him from safety to linebacker. But what about moving him to kind of that hybrid box role with Harris and Quan behind him? Like, is that a package they have? And so they packaged things really well last year in terms of their safeties. And here's some two safety stuff with Quan and Chin. Here's some with Quan and Percy. Here's some three stuff with Defoe. Sometimes, most of the time, third safety was Percy. So, like, I think they have the options. And Harris is a guy that can play nickel. He can play safety. He can play in the post. He can play in the box. He can line up man to man on guys. He's not like amazing at that, but he'll do a bang up job for you at the very least. So I think that Chin, while better certainly at some things, and maybe even the better overall player for the value and for some of the things they want to be able to do versatility wise on defense, Harris is probably the smarter investment.
And now, like when we talk about free agency, do you think those guys, Hampton, McGee, Owens, do they play a part in how they approach free agency?
Have to. But yeah. I also think that like if Jeremy Chin was a Pro Bowler last year, like he was good. Don't get it twisted. Yeah. But if he was a Pro Bowler, then you probably resign him. He wasn't. I think specifically for guys like Hampton and McGee, like Owens was an undrafted free agent. So I get why people love Tyler Owens, because watching Tyler Owens on special teams makes you think that Tyler Owens can do anything. But like run and hit is very different than playing safety in the NFL. The mental load and the decision making and all that kind of stuff is just very different. And not to say that Tyler can't develop into an actual good NFL safety potentially, considering his physical gifts. But I think when you talk about McGee, like that's a guy that they want to develop. And I think another year under Bobby and some maybe expanded roles for him this year is a part of their plans. I think that who else were we just talking about? Oh, Hampton, for sure. Yeah. I think that they have in mind a role for him, and they're going to give him the opportunity to go out and exceed in that or excel in that role. So I think it has to. I think on the receiver front, like, would they be looking for a big slot if they didn't think that Luke had a path this year to do something more? Like, eventually you have to give your guys a chance to fail or succeed, hopefully succeed. But you also don't want to leave yourself totally exposed where a guy who hasn't proven it yet is your only option. So it works both ways. Yeah.
I mean, $8 million a year for I know Adam. It seems like Adam has a number that he will not budge. But what did we offer him?
I don't know. And like maybe they circled Harris and were like, this is the guy we want. Yeah, maybe. You know, I don't know enough. I mean, the only guy that I know that they were in on that they missed on because he said it out loud was DJ Reed. Reed in his intro press conference in Detroit was like it was down to Detroit and Washington, and Detroit offered more money.
But did you? So Khan podcast this morning said he spoke with someone and they said they don't know why he said that, because that's not the impression that they had.
Interesting.
On Khan podcast this morning.
I'll have to listen to it. Shout out to John, the man with all the info. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, also who knows, like maybe that's not exactly, you know, DJ Reed lost a game of telephone with his own agent on what happened. Like, I don't know. We all know that this happens at this time of year.
Yeah, most definitely. Remaining hosts. I mean, we still got free agency. You got the draft coming up, but kind of rank like the top three biggest hosts
Edge is,
right now.
Yeah, Edge is far and away number one. Definitely. Like they need another body. Nevertheless, they need, and I know they signed another dude last night, and I can't remember his name. I haven't heard of him, so I apologize. All respect to that to a dude who's an NFL player and deserves better from me. But they need, I think, some more bodies on the edge, and they need someone specifically with some pass rush juice. I think we definitely expect them to attack that in the draft, if not in the first round. But you want to have a higher floor underneath you, which is really what free agency is about. They also need another body at corner. I like the Jonathan Jones signing. Like, he's still got some good football left in him. He's also got some I'm a little older football left in him. That's what happens when you get up into 10 years in the league. But I also love, by the way, having him in the room with Marshawn Lattimore. Like, that dude is apparently an A+ character guy, just like super class act. And he's older than Marshawn, as opposed to a guy like Mikey, who's an outstanding young leader. But I don't know if he can step to Marshawn and keep his head cool in the way that a Jonathan Jones can. Yeah. So I love that from the locker room dynamics. Nevertheless, a guy that's played special teams, all that kind of stuff. But I would think that getting another big-bodied corner, kind of their kind of corner, that would work. And then receiver too. Like, I still think you need another body at receiver. I just saw you put up the comment, a kicker too. I'm glad you mentioned that because they re-signed Zane Gonzalez, but like they should still draft or I mean seventh, like with one of their seventh rounders or undrafted free agent. They'll bring in competition. Like you don't need to sign a kicker now. Go find a young cat who can boot the ball 60 yards and have him compete with Zane Gonzalez in training camp. But that should happen. I don't know if I would put it number 4 on the list, but it should happen.
Craig, I don't know how you gonna look at me after this, but so like with the kicker, we're about to talk about kickers, right? So if anybody want to leave,
happy March 14th,
go,
everybody.
right?
We're talking about kickers.
So like when I, just kind of, looking at the draft, the prospects, doing some work on that, it's not as strong as it was last year, right? The draft is not as strong as it was last year. Last year, the 7th round, you could find 5, 6 round talent possibly. When we had 3 out of the last 50 picks, right? I was okay to use one of those picks for a kicker, either Ryan Fitzgerald or Andrelis from out of Miami. Those are the only 2 that I was willing to draft with a 7th round pick. But now that we only have 1, I'm kind of like, oh man, I don't think we're going to do it because Adam was in the room when they drafted one, I think. So, and don't forget he was willing.
Moody in the 3rd,
and remember he traded a 7th this year, but it didn't work out for Cade
York,
yeah. But he didn't. The conditions wasn't met, so we got the 7th back. So it's not like he's afraid to move a 7 for a kicker. So.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you've scouted kickers puts you ahead of me, and you will stay ahead of me. I will not watch 1 second of a kicker snap this entire draft process. I have better things to do with my life. Deuce, that is not an indictment on you. If you think that's a good use of your time, that's between you and your family. I will not be watching any kickers. That concludes my kicker talk. If they draft a kicker in the 7th round, that's perfectly fine with me. I hope that guy's better than Jake Moody was in the 3rd. End of kicker talk.
Most definitely end of the kicker talk. I don't get a lot of people that want to have that talk. So, welcome to the club. We kind of talked about DJ Reed that possibly being a miss, but like if there is a thing like Holland and some other players, even though because we were like 3rd in cap coming into free agency, so of course we're going to be named to a lot of big ticket free agents if people see it as a need, even if we are linked to them or not. But do you like how Adam moves? It seems like he has a number and he's not moving off it. That can lead to regrets, right?
It can, but also the other way can lead to regrets too. Like if you these numbers aren't things that like they pull out on vibes, right? Like they have formulas and they have spreadsheets and they have things that say, hey, this amount of production is worth X amount of dollars. And if all of a sudden you're hoping to get $15 million of production out of a player that you pay $15 million, do you really want to pay that player 18 because another team is willing to? Like eventually you have to say, our cap space is a finite resource. We have to be diligent. That said, I also, sometimes it's okay to pay a $15 million player $16. Like it works both ways, and you kind of have to understand there are other things that go into value other than production, which they certainly understand, right? Like I look at a guy like Jonathan Jones, and I'm like, I don't know that you're getting $5.5 or $6.5 million of production out of Jonathan Jones. You might if he winds up being your cornerback 2 and he plays well. Well, shoot, then you probably got $10 million production. Sick, that's a value. But like what he brings to the locker room is worth a couple $1 million, probably. Like he might, because, and I talked about this with Bobby, right? Bobby, does he have his shortcomings at this point of his career in coverage specifically? Sure, absolutely. Yeah. But he makes every single guy in that building better. He makes the janitor better at their job. Like he is an unbelievable force multiplier. And so how do you put a value on that? And by the way, the value on that for Washington, where he is a known commodity, is probably different than it is if he's got to walk into a new locker room and make different connections. And maybe there's a different leadership structure that's already in place where he filled a void and is the number one guy on the pedestal here. So this is like the hard part about free agency is what are those values? In terms of anybody that they missed accordingly, like I would have probably been willing to pay some of the corners, whether it's Reed, Carlton Davis. Like those are guys that I would have been interested in, but they're already paying Lattimore. They've got Mikey. Like I don't know if that's a position they wanted to spend that much money on one room. So I kind of get it. Holland would have been nice. Like the number he got was fine. I would have paid that if I was interested in Javon Holland. I don't know enough about what they want at safety to pretend like I can be outraged that they want it with Will Harris over Javon Holland. Because I also, by the way, like Will Harris probably more than I should, especially for guys.
You're not the only one.
Yeah,
I have a video when I'm going crazy about the guy.
Yeah, so I like him. I'm trying to think of other guys. I mean, Slayton's the one to me that like got away from everybody. How does that dude back on the Giants? I have no idea. But other than that, like there ain't a lot of dudes that I'm like, should have definitely done that. From a culture and a play style and a fit, whatever standpoint, like I kind of think they've stayed within their lane in a pretty smart way, knowing that yes, there are guys that I would have liked to sign, but you can't sign everybody.
That's right. I got a couple more questions, but this guy right here, Caleb, he loves your show. He loves you and Logan, and he knows how much I respect you all because you all support me a whole lot.
Appreciate that.
And
he
knows that. So anytime we're debating about something, well, I was watching Logan and Hoffman. This how they feel about it. So I'm like, you know what? I ain't even gonna fuss with you no more. Because I say when it comes to y'all two, y'all word is bond, and I don't even fuss with it no more.
Hey,
so
man.
He knows that. My man
Paulson puts in more time on this stuff than anybody I've ever met. And I try to put in some time, but like I feel like I'm not doing enough compared to if I look at Logan all the time, I'm not doing enough. If I look at everyone else, I'm like, I think you're doing okay, kid. Like, be nicer to yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna get low. Like Logan was the first person. He's always shows a lot of support. So I'm gonna talk to him about kick and shoot. So because you don't. All right, next question. Big time trades. Do you think we're in the market? They got Trey out there. Of course, Ayuk is always a rumor. Do you think Adam makes any more trades?
No way on Ayuk. Yeah. Like you can't. Terry's going to get an extension. You're paying Deebo. Like there's just, I think that you got to go cheaper there. And also the draft, like there's some solid depth at receiver in this draft. Even if the high end is not anywhere close to where it was last year. Hendrickson's an interesting one. Right now, apparently Cincinnati's asking price is insane. I'm sure that they want first, or I'm sure they're asking for 2 firsts and people are like, you're drunk, go home. But let's say on draft day, they can get out of 29. Get back to like 34, 35 and recoup some future picks as well. And then they flip 20 or 35 for Trey Hendrickson straight up. I'm not opposed to that necessarily. Because that's essentially trading or turning that first round pick into the guy who's the NFL sack leader.
Yeah. like
Okay, fine. They can afford it. They've got the cap space. Yeah. I don't love the idea of paying Trey Hendrickson at 31 years old, $35 million a year. Like that's my hang up with him is I know that he is incredible at rushing the passer. He's not a complete edge in the way that Micah or Garrett is. He's worth probably close to 30. I just don't know if that's the best use of money right now. And because he's on that side of my side of the
your
age
side
cliff,
of the
my side of the age cliff, I would be a little weary about the structure of that deal as well, depending on how many years guaranteed he wants. But I think the thing about the Tunsil trade is like, we don't know what else is out there, right? Everyone's like, oh, they make another trade. Here's the obvious guys that are on the trade market. Nobody knew Laremy Tunsil was available. So could they make another trade that we have no ideas in the works right now? Sure. Would they need to probably do it on draft night as part of a bigger deal where they are recouping other assets first? Because are they are they kind of on the line right now? Yeah. Because I don't think they want to get less than 5 picks in this draft and same thing for next year. And they're on that line right now.
Yeah. Last question. As far as the plan that, the first year we heard Adam Peters, what he wants to do with this team, how he wants to look at it, how he wants to build it, how he wants to have sustained success, all those other good things. And then Jaden happens, right? NFC Championship game happens. Even Josh said like they just wasn't expected. Things have changed. How big of a pivot do you think they had to move from what he originally wanted to do to what he's doing now?
So I think the goal was always to get better every year. It's just like when you are trying to get better than the NFC Championship game, there's only one more stop on that metro, if you will. Like we're at the end here, buddy. And so the things that you might be willing to do, I think, do change. it's not that hard to go from 4 wins to 7 wins in this league. And if that had been their thing last year, then like it's clear we're not ready to win right now. Like we can have a little extra bake time. Like, okay, but like dinner's ready. We gotta go. Like we're gonna have to microwave some stuff. Okay, fine. Like let's get it up to temperature and enjoy our meal. And so I think that people see that sometimes as a negative, and there can be negatives if it's done improperly. But I think the biggest thing, Deuce, that I've kind of come to conclusion wise is like the worst analysis on the planet, but it probably isn't said out loud enough, which is the only way to be right is to be good at your job. And so if there was a perfect plan where if you draft X amount, and if you spend X amount of free agency, and of your 53-man roster, 17 guys must be drafted between blah and blah, like everyone would do it. But that's not the case. If you have 5 draft picks and you hit all of them, and that's Team A, and Team B has 10 draft picks and hits 2 of them, who had a better draft? Team A. Okay, they only had 5 picks, but they did a good job. And so I think ultimately, like that's kind of where I'm at with this is I think we spend a ton of time fussing over the plan. And ultimately, like the plan is important. It kind of defines how high the tightrope that you're walking is. There's certainly there's more place to fall the higher you are. And with draft picks being lottery tickets, like they are now walking a fine line. Where what happens in 2-3 years when all these guys are older and gone or contracts are expiring, and do you have the next wave of commanders ready that you're ready to give extensions to and pay that are homegrown talents? It's harder to have that ready if you have fewer draft picks. But if you have a bunch of draft picks and they all stink, then it doesn't matter either. And so just get good players, compete as often as you can, and then not keep kicking the can down the road, but make sure that you have just enough in the stable to continue to draft and then hope that you find your Fred Warners, your George Kittles, et cetera, that Adam did in San Francisco that become your next phase of stalwarts.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, Craig, for joining. Any last words?
No, I can't wait for the weekend where I get 2 days off from talking about football. Cause I also have done a million live streams and the radio shows and all that kind of stuff. And I hope I'm just ready to stack a couple of moves, Deuce, and then talk about them on Monday. But I think we're getting to that point in the calendar. But no, I always appreciate coming on with you, bro. It's always a great time. Always good for some good insights, some good laughs, some good people, some good comments. So I appreciate everyone who's checking us out, and I always appreciate the invite, bro.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for joining. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We know your time is very valuable. For you to spend it with us, we absolutely appreciate it. Remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.